Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of BUAT, BISING, a podcast where I just talk about whatever I feel like talking lah. So I hope you guys are well, wherever you are. And to my international friends who are listening to this, and if you're wondering what on earth does BUAT, BISING mean, well, it's basically a Malaysian expression that means to make noise. So again, I hope you guys are well. Please bear with the noise that is happening around my neighborhood, whether it's the rubbish truck or the birds that are around or even my aircon. I'm using the simplest setup possible, and I just felt like doing this because I feel like I need a creative outlet during this stressful or difficult or scary time for many of us. And I won't make any reference to it, okay? Because this is not the idea. The idea is just to have fun and just to have a conversation, although it's a one-way conversation. And let's just have fun with it. So you can use it for whatever you like. You can listen to it while you are playing games or doing chores, you have work to do, or even to help you fall asleep. So whatever makes you happy lah. And today I just feel like talking about my journey into the arts, like how have I been involved in the arts growing up, and advice for people who want to get started in making videos or even, filmmaking and whatnot. So let's get into it. So growing up, I've always had an inclination towards the arts, even today. Yeah, so it started off with drawing. And by the way, I don't like dancing because I can't dance to save my life, okay? If you know me, then you'll know that I am a horrible dancer. But anyway, drawing. So my earliest memory of drawing would have to be when I was, I want to say 3 years old maybe, when I would take my brother's notebooks and I would scribble, I would make doodles on it, but my brother was pretty upset. He got pretty mad because of it. And then I think when I was like 5 or 6, I was really into Looney Tunes. So I would draw the characters like Bugs Bunny and Tweety and Daffy Duck, like all of them. I used to draw them a lot. But as I grew older, I would draw this comic that I personally made and I would give out to my classmates to read. And it's called Spider Boy because I was really into Spider-Man at that time. So what I would do, because I would usually sit at the back of the class because I was one of the taller kids, I would sit down, take out my A4 paper, and take my ruler and then make it into panels, and I would just draw it. But there wasn't any space, like there wasn't enough space for everything, so the drawings would sometimes be kind of funny, but I was really proud of it during that time. And then as I grew older, it was more obviously towards anime and whatnot, but my drawing phase kind of phased out when I was like 13 or something like that. But if I had to summarize my drawing experience into one story, I guess it would have to be when I was 8, I think. And what my dad would used to do was he would take me out for breakfast in the town area in KK because my mom obviously had to be sent to town for work. My dad would send my mom out for work, and so after that he'll bring me out for breakfast. And so during that time it was a harvest festival. It was Kaamatan, and they had something going on in Padang Merdeka. So they had the stalls and everything. There were a lot of things going on, and I was walking with my dad, and for whatever reason, we kind of got separated. I drifted somewhere because I saw these group of kids drawing, and I was intrigued. So I went to one of the organizers and I said, hey, can I draw? And he's like, yeah, if you join, you'll get like free oil pastels. And I thought, cool, like I love art materials, so I'll join. And then my dad eventually found me, and I showed him the drawing. He gave me 2 thumbs up, and I finished much earlier than the other kids. And so I left. I went to school. I forgot about it until sometime during that day. I got a phone call, and they said that I won first prize, which to me was an added bonus and added surprise because I was just happy to get the oil pastels in the first place. So yeah, that basically sums up my journey with drawing. And I still draw today, but again, my biggest inspiration would have to be LUT. And LUT is not lookup table for you video editors out there, but LUT as in LAT. He's a very famous Malaysian artist, and he would used to draw comics that would go out in the newspapers. So a lot of comics that look at the Malaysian context, and every now and then he would have compilations of those comics into one book. So I used to go and buy those books, and it was really a big inspiration for me in terms of how I like to draw. So again, that was drawing. Now another love of mine would definitely have to be music, because music has always been a big part of my life. When I first started out, in film school and uni, I think most people knew me as that guy who really wanted to be in the music course. But that's a whole other topic that I will talk about in a little bit. But coming back, I think I started when I was like 8 years old. A family friend of ours told my dad and said, "Hey, do you want to take your kid to piano lessons?" And so I went for these piano lessons. And my teacher is teacher Jeanette Chin. She's currently the principal of Legato Music. But when I went, the learning center was not there yet. So it was basically just learning in a house. I was going to a house to learn. And when I started off, I wasn't really that fond of it, to be honest. I felt like it was a chore, it was a hassle. But I think when I was about 10 and she taught me this Christian song, some of you might know it. It's Still by Hillsong. And because obviously growing up in church and being exposed to a lot of Christian music, that was the first time that it really clicked in my head. I was like, man, I can play the song that I actually sing most of the time. That's awesome. And so I learned it and I really got into it. And ever since then, I felt, for whatever reason, I just felt this personal responsibility to always find something that I can improve in terms of my musicality every year. And when I was 16 or 15 or 16, I was introduced to the world of arranging and composing on computers. And that's when I was introduced to Apple products and whatnot. So I was really into it, and I still am today. And I'm always grateful for that experiences that I've had in music, working with people in the industry, meeting with so many talented people. And I'm really grateful for that music-wise. I'm blessed to have certain musical abilities, but it's not just, natural talent. It also comes with a lot of hard work, music-wise. And so, that's my music journey for me pretty much. And then another one would have to be, I think I did a bit of acting in primary school, or something related to, just using your voice on stage. Whether it was choral speaking, which I dropped out like halfway, or even like storytelling, which I tried, but for whatever reason I didn't do so well, or even stand-up comedy. And this is a funny story, by the way. I was 13 at the time, obviously a freshman in secondary school, my first year in secondary school. And I've always liked comedy. I watched a lot of stand-up comedies. So what happened was there was this talent show in school. And, they said you can join for many different things, whether it was dancing or singing, like a typical talent show. I'll try doing stand-up comedy. There was a part where the MC came up, and the shuffle dance was really big back in that time. And so the MC said, we're giving out this t-shirt for this mini, shuffling contest. And for whatever reason, like I said, I know I'm a horrible dancer, but this is the dance that I learned from a friend. And this is the only one that I knew. And so obviously I was a little twerp, and nobody expected much from me, right? I think the other guys who were competing with me were much older guys. And so I went into it, I did it, and I actually won. Like, people were impressed, like, walao eh, this little Chinese kid can actually shuffle, ah. But again, shuffling aside, I'm still a horrible dancer, okay? So not long after that, it was my time to perform. And obviously, being able to hype up the crowd so much before, a lot of expectation was placed on me. And also, because of the fact that I was the only guy doing stand-up comedy, And I was a freshman. It was my first year in secondary school. And so when I went up, all I did to prepare for this, by the way, was I had a bunch of joke books at home, and I would read it and thought, ha ha ha, this is funny, and I'll just use those jokes, right? But when I went up, I literally went up for like 30 seconds. I said my name, I said hi, and I wanted to say something, but I totally forgot what I wanted to say, and I just left the stage. So yeah, that was my venture into stand-up comedy, so to speak. But also I did acting. I was part of the drama team in my school when I was like 15 all the way till I was like 17. So yeah, it was a good experience. But growing up, and I'm still guilty of it today, even when I first started venturing into radio, is that I tend to glue my words. Meaning to say that, I would like kind of talk like this and it's kind of mumbly. And I'm kind of guilty of doing it today sometimes. So as I was doing drama and things like that, people will always tell me like, stop gluing your words. And I never understood what they meant. Or maybe because I didn't have like a clear representation of what that sounds like, or I didn't have any playback or any feedback for me to listen. But that all changed when I went into radio. And that was an interesting journey of its own. And I'm always, forever grateful of this experience that I had with radio. And when I started out, my music executive at the time, Rika, she told me like, Maya, you gotta stop gluing your words. You gotta sound natural. And I was like, what do you mean? And it was not until I listened to myself that I understood, and I finally understood, oh man, I really gotta stop gluing my words together. And it's something that I still struggle with from time to time, and I might be guilty of doing it even now. At the time, I thought that, in KK, what's the biggest thing that you can do art-wise? And I thought maybe I could be a radio announcer because, I just like to talk, right? But the truth is, let me tell you, I think I am an introverted extrovert, if that makes sense. Some people are just natural extroverts, meaning it doesn't matter what situation that you put them in, they just love to talk. It becomes natural to them, and they just love spending time with people. But for me, for myself, I actually love spending a lot of time at home, and especially during this lockdown, I've actually enjoyed myself. I have no urges of going out and spending time with my friends. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that I don't like spending time with my friends, but I just enjoy my time spending at home, which is why when I travel by myself, people ask me like, people get weirded out, like, why are you traveling by yourself? And to that I say, I enjoy it. Like, I can do things at my own pace. I can do whatever I want. Like, there's nothing holding me back. So yeah, that's why I enjoy time by myself. But I digress. So yeah, that's sort of the whole acting slash like announcer scene for me. And if I could sum up the whole radio announcer slash acting scene in one, or acting experience into one story, it would have to be the time when I just started as a radio announcer. So there was this event that was going on. I shall not specify what event it was, but basically it was like a gathering of like different bands around KK, and they would come up to play their music. But let me just say that it wasn't organized very well. And obviously, if in concerts with many bands, the hard work comes when you have to do a turnover between bands because, different bands have different instruments and stuff like that. And so that would take some time. So I was supposed to be the guy on stage to fill that time. Obviously, I had to buy time. And so the only thing I had was, besides saying a word or two about the band, was to do a lucky draw. And obviously, it would be boring if I were to just go on stage and just randomly pick out a number and just say this number won. And because obviously the hall was kind of big, it would take some time for that person to walk down on stage. And with no background music playing at all, which again was weird enough, I had to do something. I heard a keyboard being set up behind me, and I thought, okay, finally the keyboard works. And I did not know who it was behind me, but I just said, hey, just play this couple of chords. And that's what I did, and I started singing along with the numbers. So yeah, I mean, being an announcer or even acting kind of puts you on the spot. When it comes to doing things spontaneously, I think I'm good at, but when it comes to like memorizing scripts, like I'm not the best person to do so. So I've met actors who can really memorize their lines, and I really like applaud them for that. Like I respect them for that. So for me to just be spontaneous, that's easy. But to each their own. So now the thing that people know me most for, I'd say, is making videos. But it wasn't that way for quite a period of time. But how did it start? Well, it started when I was a kid, and I had these neighbors, two neighbors that I would play Let's Pretend with almost every single day. One of my neighbors actually brought me down to his house because I would go to his house every now and then because I didn't have Astro, and I would watch Mythbusters, and I thought that was really cool. One time he brought me up to his brother's room, and they were on the computer, and they were watching YouTube. And that was my first ever exposure to YouTube. I think that was like 2006, 2007. And I was exposed to YouTube. So, Mark, if you're listening to this, man, shout out to you. Thanks for exposing me to YouTube. If it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't be where I am today. So, yeah, YouTube. I was introduced to this YouTuber called James Rolfe, also known as the Angry Video Game Nerd, and his YouTube channel is called Cinemassacre. And so I would watch his videos all the time, but at one point he came out with a self-documentary called Cinemassacre 200, and it basically documents about his life from his childhood all the way up to where he was, about his filmmaking journey, and how he's made 200 films, well, short films so far. And that really inspired me. I think Cinemassacre 200 came out when I was like 14 or something like that. Well, during that time, I was inspired, obviously, and I decided to make a YouTube channel. And it is embarrassingly called 78 Media Boy. And because I do not have the login to that account, I forgot my password and everything. It is there on the internet forever, and it's so embarrassing because all those videos happened or were made before I reached puberty. And of course, Ryan Higa was really big back then, so some of my videos were inspired by him because I do the tee-hee as well and things like that. Yeah, I would just make all these funny videos. But because of my inspirations, I made it a point to use that compact camera of mine that I had. It was this like Canon, I can't even remember what it was, but I made it a point to make videos and also make a short film on the last day of school every single year. Now the first one is on there, and if you actually look at it, at the end, at the credits, it says a short film inspired by James Rolfe. So that's how long it's been. And then the second short film that I made the year after, which is 2009, it got deleted for some reason. And I think there's a video on there that says why I had to delete the short film. And I think it was because my neighbor was involved in it. And I think her mom wasn't too happy that she's being put out there on the internet. So yeah, there was that. I don't know where it is right now. I guess it's gone forever. So yeah, I am embarrassingly promoting myself again. If you want to watch my embarrassing videos of me when I was like 13 or 14, you can check out my YouTube channel, 78 Media Boy. But I was so inspired, in fact, that when I was 14, I told my friend, Regina Ho, and I told her that, hey, you know what? I want to study film one day. I want to study cinematography one day. And she was like, cool. And again, I never really thought about it because age 16 onwards, I was really into music. I was really, really, really into music with the whole arranging and composing and whatnot. So, like, filmmaking was at the back of my mind. But I still consumed a lot of content, a lot of TV shows, a lot of films, almost every single day. But I was just enjoying it from, an average consumer's or an average watcher's perspective, and not really from a film perspective, like a film buff. But then one day, something ironic really happened. I just finished Form 6. For some of you out there, the equivalent might be, I don't know, the SATs or diploma or A-levels. Yeah, basically pre-university. I just finished that, and it was time for me to choose the courses that I wanted to take. And my first choice was to take music in University Malaysia Sabah, which is obviously in KK, and it's not that far away from where I live. And so I thought, yeah, that would be a good fit. I love music, and it's nearby, so let's take it. I went for the audition and everything. It went great, and they were happy. But because of the powers that be, I was given my eighth choice, and I didn't even really think much about it. And so I was given, when result day arrived, I was given in University Malaysia Sarawak. So I thought, man, this is ironic because I really wanted to learn music, but I got film instead. And I guess my 14-year-old version's dream came to life. So when I went to University Malaysia Sarawak, or Unimas for short, um, I remember it was the first day. Well, it wasn't the first day, but it was an orientation for all the art students, whether it was music, drama, theatre, what have you. We were having our orientation, and the dean asked, who wants to change their course to something else, and I was the first person to raise my hand. Obviously, because of how the Malaysian tertiary education system works, most people do not get what they want. If you're entering public university, most people do not get what they want. And I still really wanted to do music. But because of how the system works, I decided, you know what, let me just at least get into the system, and then maybe after a semester or two, I can change to music. But that first semester of taking film really reminded me why I loved making videos, why I love filmmaking so much. Because even though I was making music from the ages of like 16 to 19, I still made videos from time to time. Not that often, but from time to time. And obviously, being exposed to Apple products, I started to use iMovie, which is why I use Final Cut Pro right now. And I'm very grateful for my time in university because of all the things that I've learned. And I'm very grateful for the friends that I've made there, especially Mr. Dixon Ng Chia Wei, Ikmar, Anthony Salingau, Bijoy, Chan Ching Xiang. I mean, these were the guys that, I spent the most time with in my uni days. And they teach me a lot. And it goes to show that in film, it's everyone has their unique abilities, or like everyone has their specialty. Like, so example, like for my friend Dixon, like he's got a really good eye for a shot. Like, he knows how to compose a shot really well. My friend Ikmar, on the other hand, I think he's really good at coming up with like these really interesting stories. And again, he's also got a good eye for a shot as well. But man, his storytelling is out of this world. So much so that he was chosen to direct a telemovie. And if you want to look for it, it's actually up on YouTube. And it's called Hajat. Hajat is basically Malay for wish. And it's basically this story about how this grandfather, or this grandson, was trying to fulfill his grandfather's wishes. Which I thought was really cool, because I remember that we would have this conversation late at night about the script from like 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. And to see that film actually made, I was like really impressed. And so, like I said, everyone's got the different ability, and I have mine as well. So to answer you guys out there who are wondering if you should take film school or whatever, I'd say it's really up to you. But here's what I think. Okay, I think that film school is not the most important thing if you want to get into filmmaking. Now, I know this is kind of controversial because I went into film school myself, but for me, it was about getting that piece of paper to obviously make my parents happy and whatnot. But I also think that if your parents want you to do a specific course for university, but you really love film, like, it's okay, just do what your parents want you to do. And after that, you can just go ahead and pursue film. If you're really, really into it and you're really passionate into it, just go for it. Yeah, so that's what I think about that. But what I do love about film school is that you are gathering yourselves, and this is what I think is the most important thing, is that you're gathering yourselves around a group of people who are passionate about filmmaking, who love talking about films, who just, it's a whole different experience. And that's what's different from going and not going to film school. Because obviously, being in Malaysia, not everyone has the luxury of going to an actual film set. Maybe if you're in KL, that's a given, but not, in the other parts of Malaysia. Like, we don't get that chance. And so that's why being in film school was a really good experience for me. But then again, to each their own. So I guess we finally reached the portion of where I give advice on how you can start making videos and things like that. And to that I say, put all the questions about gear aside for a moment, and I would say that the most important thing, if you're looking to make videos or if you're looking to get into filmmaking, is actually learn how to write. Like, learn how to actually write. Because I believe that if all else fails, story is the most important thing. And if you can write a good story, everything else is secondary. Because a video can be shot super well, it can be, edited really well, it's got like crazy special effects, but if the story is horrible, it's horrible. And one big example for me would have to be the Transformers series. I mean, watching those movies, it just gave me a headache lah. Like, visual wise and story wise, it was just really bad. But I do think that it's beneficial if you can go out there and learn about how to actually write a script. You can get like free script writing software, and you can learn about what are the components of a good script, what are the components of a good story. And so once you've got that part down, then maybe you can start talking about gear. And I know the question that everyone asks is, what camera should I buy? What DSLR, what mirrorless camera, yada yada yada. And I think that if you are on a budget, you can start with your phone. Let me talk about that later. I think the most important piece of equipment that many people leave out or put it at the back of their mind or only realize when they start editing has got to be sound equipment. Sound is so important because people can forgive a movie if the shots aren't that great, but it's harder to forgive bad sound, because what's the point of a video looking so nice but it sounds horrible? People can't hear what you're saying, or people can't hear what you're trying to put out there. And so sound makes up 50% of the short film. Lecturers, people in film, everyone will tell you this, that sound really makes 50% of the video or of the film. So obviously there are cheap sound recording equipment that you can definitely get out there, to pair it up with your phone or to pair it up with your camera or whatever it is. So yeah, make sure that you invest in sound equipment. It could be a simple little clip mic that you can attach to your phone. I think that's pretty good enough if you're just starting out. Or you can get like a proper, if you want to get a shotgun mic, that's okay as well. That's not my preferred way of recording sound. But ideally is that you want to get a recorder and then you get like another device to record. So again, if you want to know more information about this, you can give me a text or shoot me in the DMs or post it in the comments. Okay. Then after that, you can talk about what kind of camera that you want to get, because I remember juniors always asking me this question, and my friends obviously, what camera should I buy? And people are thinking about like the really expensive cameras and stuff like that. But honestly, you do not need an expensive camera, or you don't need expensive equipment to make a short film work. Because again, once you've got the story down and once you got the sound down, then you can talk about the camera. That's what I think anyway. And in terms of camera, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? If you're talking about lenses, you don't need so many. Like, I think 2 or 3 is the best if you're starting out. Again, if you're starting out, 2 or 3 is the best. And one of my favorite websites to buy, or actually my most favorite website to buy, all these sort of equipment has to be klDSLR.com, because they have the cheapest price in the whole of Malaysia, I think, and you can buy from them online. Okay, and they're pretty good. So I highly recommend that you buy from these guys. You can find them on Lazada, or you can find them on Facebook, or you can even find them on their website. And I am not sponsored by them, okay? This is just my personal point, my personal preference. And I believe they have a second-hand section down there where you can find like, cheaper, older cameras that sure might not be as good as the ones that you get today, but they do the job, right? And so instead of focusing on what camera to get, for me it's like any camera that obviously will be good if you can change the lenses is fine. But learn about and study about the films that you like and look at the shots. And
understand how they compose the shots. What kind of shot is this? And just really take a look into that, and then hopefully you can bring that into your filmmaking process or your video making process. And another thing that people tend to forget as well, especially when it comes to making short films, is their production design. Okay, so you got a lot of fancy equipment, you're ready to shoot, but what about production design? Or what about, the talent or the actors that you've gathered or you've hired or you've just asked to just help you out? For example, it wouldn't be believable if a 20-year-old guy is acting as a 60-year-old man. Unless the person looks really old, sure, power to you. But in most cases, obviously, you want to get someone closer to that to play the role. And also, it would be good, if possible, to get someone who is doing what they're doing right now. Like, if you want a father, get an actual father because they've got real life experiences that they can translate into, this filmmaking process. They can translate into their acting. And again, coming to production design, you can have all the fancy equipment or whatever, but then if your background or if your location or if there's an element in there that is not believable, then it takes the audience out of the film as well, right? So if you are, let's say, I mean, if you're doing a funny video, it's another story lah. But if you're shooting a short film and you're supposed to shoot a scene in a cafe, but you take a random room and you just put a table and a few chairs and that's it. Obviously, it's not believable. You're taking people out of the story because the whole purpose is to get people to immerse in your story. And I think that's so important. Now, I could go on and on and on about this, but feel free to ask any video making questions down in the comments or in the DMs or whatever. Questions like, what YouTube channels do you follow? Or like, what editing software should I use? Things like that. Yeah, you can go ahead and ask. And if you would like to be a guest on this podcast, I don't know how we will work it out, but if you'd like to be a guest, hit me up as well. So, yeah, thanks for listening to the first ever podcast. Thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for listening to me. And again, I hope you guys are truly well. So take care, and I'll see you another time when it's time to BUAT BISING.